Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and today it's my pleasure to have Leisa Peterson with us. Leisa is the Mindful Millionaire Maker. As a coach, author, business growth strategist, and founder of WealthClinic, she helps people elevate their financial consciousness by realizing their true value and becoming financially empowered. Leisa, it's so great to have you on the show.
I am so very happy to be here.
Awesome. So let's start off by sharing with our listener your origin story, your superhero origin story. How did you end up being a millionaire maker and focused on the whole consciousness, mindfulness side of it instead of just like these are the rich dad, poor dad kind of secrets and tricks to success? It's really about tapping into the energy and into the, I don't know, universal Google rather than just doing, the Gary Vaynerchuk kind of hustle out there. So let's talk about your origin story.
So unfortunately, I wish I could say, oh, I just got this spontaneous seed that got planted. And that spontaneous seed was unfortunately a lot of tragedy in that my father was brutally murdered in 1999. And at that time in my life, I did not know it, but I was on a crash course for burnout, for not knowing what it meant to be happy, for no idea that I had never really been exposed to what it meant to be happy. And he gets killed, and it took me into a tailspin back in 23 years ago. That woke me up to the fact that I needed to change my life, but I couldn't walk away from my career. I couldn't walk away from my family. I actually thought about all those things because I just said, I've got to figure this out. But I went on that proverbial journey, kept my job and my career and my family going, but went inner and also started going. I got really involved in a Buddhist organization and started traveling and doing long retreats as much as I possibly could while still looking the same on the outside. That journey would take me through, unfortunately, several other family members' deaths and some really terrible situations that continue to confront this idea of like, why are you here? Are you just here to have lots of money? Because before my dad was killed, I was on the pathway becoming self-made millionaire by my mid 30s. It was all about my career and success and having all this, wealth because I hadn't come from it. But when that happened, I started realizing that there were other things in life, namely relationships that were really broken in my life that I didn't know how to repair. My obsession with money was completely not reasonable, and I would put other people below the relationship I had with money. I was really messed up. And 23 years later, and about 8 years ago, I decided to leave my career and start coaching, but only after going through the fire again and again and again in my own journey to figuring out what it means to live a life of great joy and purpose and service. And that's really taken a long time because coming from where I started, it was like the onion skin, the artichoke, pulling back those layers and just being like, are you kidding me? There's more. But that kind of brings me to today. And I will say that every dream I ever could have imagined as a child has come into reality as a result of focusing on the inner journey. The money is a byproduct now, but it isn't the purpose of my life like it used to be.
Yeah. It's a side effect really of revealing light and doing good in the world. And so many light workers and do-gooders are broke and they're struggling to make ends meet. They can't even pay their bills. And it's just shocking to see what they charge is barely enough to have a subsistence existence. And then I challenge them to double or quadruple their rates. And they're like, well, I can't do that. It doesn't feel right because then people who need me couldn't afford me. And, there's this expression, I'm sure you've heard it, leap and a net will appear. I feel that that is applicable in that kind of scenario. Like if you make that leap to charge more because you feel worthy of that and you believe that the right people will show up at your doorstep to become clients, because it really is magical like that, then you got to leap and make that net appear. What are your
Mm.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that when you come from extreme scarcity, it's hard to even know how to do that. And I think that had I not been in a situation
Hmm.
again and again of not having a choice and like thinking, what do I have to lose? Because I could see that what I thought was important wasn't actually all that important. I started kind of throwing caution to the wind and saying, well, what if you try this? But I didn't know what was on the other side. I had no idea. The one thing that was probably helped me at different points was when I was in college, I became friends with a gal, and her father's company was growing quite rapidly, and they had money beyond anything I had ever seen. And he was an incredibly giving person, and being able to see that somebody could have money and be giving and be so oriented to service and love and family, every once in a while I would be able to think about him and like, oh, there is a way to bring all of this together, even though I hadn't been modeled it in my life or my childhood. There was somebody out there that I could see doing what I wanted to be doing, which was being kind in service, and then also being able to build a business that could make a big impact in the world and provide for my family. Like there was a middle path, but there wasn't a lot of examples. And I worked in finance for many, many years, and people just worked a lot and made a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. No balance, no uh, sense of the bigger picture. Because money is just energy and it's a tool and it amplifies who you already are. And so if you're kind of a lousy person, it just makes you more lousy. It amplifies that. But if you work on yourself and then you you get the financial abundance, it just amplifies your ripple effect in this lifetime, and just it gives you so much more resource to live and love a service based life.
Hmm. Yeah, it's it's interesting to me because I'm curious. You have integrated your spirituality into your business, and I'm curious just how that is the cornerstone, I'm guessing, of all that you do. Like, how do you ensure that you're on the right track
Yeah.
with your goals?
I listen all the time, all day long. I listen. I spend time talking to God and listening for His responses. And yes, I do hear it. I didn't used to. It was January 22nd last year when everything changed for me, and I prayed to God for a job, and then He um, revealed to me the Matrix, and that praying for a job was not prompted because I needed a job, but because I was inspired by Sheila Gillette, who I interviewed a few months earlier, and she had a near-death experience in 1969, and she prayed for a job on her deathbed. She prayed uh, to be able to raise her kids and stay on the planet and to be given a job, and she was answered and miraculously instantly healed, to the astonishment of all the doctors. And then she started developing psychic abilities, and she's been channeling 12 archangels for the last 50 years. So I wanted a job. I didn't know what that entailed, but then once I got my request answered, I started having psychic abilities, and so I'm constantly tuning in all the time. I spend time uh, talking to God, as I said. Like I do morning rituals with the Anabacoa prayer, very powerful prayer in Kabbalah. I do a Metatron prayer of protection and abundance. I do affirmations. I do a toroidal field breathing exercise, and then I talk to God. And for at least 5 minutes. It makes a huge difference. But then throughout the day, I'm checking in. Like I don't do a podcast interview without asking and expecting guidance in terms of what questions to ask and where to take the conversation. I don't have prepared questions ever. I just tune in.
And how has that been received? I'm just curious because I'm asking the question maybe other people are curious about too.
Yeah. Well, you got to calibrate because not everybody's ready for this. Not everybody else is ready to hear that there are aliens. It's like I wasn't. It took me a few months after the veil was thinned for me to be okay about reading about that and getting some confirmations on that. It's like, okay, well, we're in for quite a decade. Like, we're going to be thrown for some loops in this decade, but it's all for our highest and best good. So no need to be fearful. It's going to be amazing. But boy, this is going to be a destiny-changing decade for humanity.
Yeah, I think people can feel it.
I think this is really important for those of us who have the connection, like you have, to speak, to share, and to be courageous. Because I know so many people who have told me in confidence, I started seeing angels last year, or I've gotten a vision, or a loved one showed up in a dream, or I had there was an animal that acted very strangely, and it was connected with something that I asked, so I took it as a sign. Like they're not outwardly sharing this. They'll only share it in confidence. And the more that we are willing to put ourselves out there and share the miraculous experience of life, because it's not either nothing is random or everything is random. Nothing's a miracle, everything's a miracle. I think nothing's random and everything's a miracle. And I believe that with every inch, like every fiber of my being. And when you are tapped into that, the miracles show up like crazy. It is incredible. It is amazing. It's astonishing. It's beautiful. It is, it's like a dream come true. It's like heaven on earth. And it's our birthright, all of it. But people are scared to share this, to talk about it. I think that's changing. We're getting more and more people who are willing to talk about it. More and more spiritual books are being sold, and discussions are being had over the Thanksgiving dinner table and stuff like that. But we've got a long ways to go as a society.
Yeah. I think people do find it refreshing, and I do think that they are pleased about anyone who is courageous enough to be willing to put themselves out there with the things that they're hearing, seeing, feeling, and also how it gets integrated into our day-to-day life, like with our children, with our partner, with our clients. And I think for me, what I like to teach folks.
Yeah, even just like a regular job.
Oh yeah.
I just watched this Mind Valley ad on Facebook, and Vishen Lakhiani, the founder, was talking about how, as a salesperson in a law firm software company, he went to a Silva method workshop and learned to tune in and get guidance on who to call. So instead of going alphabetically through the phone book with all the law firms, he would pick based on intuition. And then his sales doubled, and then his sales doubled again, and then doubled again. And then next thing you know, he's become VP at that company. So that's a great example of somebody like years ago, back in the 2000s, when that happened for him. You know, that wasn't the conversation of the day, talking about this woo-woo stuff, and yet he was applying it in a real world situation, in a business environment, not as the owner who can call the shots, but just as a lowly dialing for dollars, commission only salesperson.
Mm-hmm. The thing that I just see a lot of folks struggle with is around how to still make money and be in this way of presence. Like, how do you do that? And what I'm very open with the vulnerability of the fact that there isn't some perfect way. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things you later look back at and say, well, that wasn't totally the way I'd like to do it today. But if you have this idea, a very egoic idea of perfection, it's really tough to start being that way. But if you can say, I'm going to try my best, I'm always doing my best, no matter what, even if people judge or criticize, or it doesn't work out, or my sales are hurt by me coming into who I really am. Like you said, when you truly believe that the universe has your back, or that there's a greater plan, it doesn't matter. But for many people, especially those that I often work with, they've struggled with money all their lives, and they're not sure how they're going to take care of their responsibilities. And so the stakes are higher when you don't have a net, and yet still they inspire me on a regular basis, because when it comes through, it's like, oh, it's okay. I'm going to be okay no matter what. And that, to me, when you don't have a lot, or you have a lot and a lot to lose, it's kind of the same situation, which is kind of funny. It's like, it's wherever we're at. If we can trust more, that's when the magic really, really, really unfolds.
Yeah. And one area that you can trust but verify, because I mean, you shouldn't do this normally with God, but he invites us to do this in one particular way, and it's actually in the Bible. I don't remember where, but you're tithing, right? So you're donating a percentage of your income, usually 10%. So he's like, test me, donate more, and you're going to get it back. Remember, I challenged one of my clients to up how much they were going to donate, and it was scary, and they were really nervous about that, and did it anyways. And then, sure enough, their income leaped forward like to another level, and it ended up being almost exactly 10%. After the huge increase in income and revenue from the company.
And there's many different ways that we can give, right? I think there's the traditional way of, like, there's an organization, I'm going to give 10%. But for me, I look at the people who work for me, and what would that look like to pay them more? How can I do that? Versus, I still pay charities and do things, but I think the spirit of giving can come in so many different ways. And I always like to question the assumptions of, like, what might that look like? We are very focused that if someone comes to us in my company, money is not going to be the reason why they're not working with us. If we will meet them where they need to be met. And we find a way. And just like you said, the business continues to grow, even if, we're saying to someone, make a PayPal donation to a cause, come be a part of what we're up to. But I'm constantly amazed because
Yeah.
I just see the opportunities to give back everywhere, and I allow those to show up,
Yep.
and that works really well for me because I'm having those connections. And then when someone, right, the teach a person to fish rather than giving them the fish dinner, if you can help someone and they go out and start to spread what they've
Mhm.
learned, it's a very big impact that occurs, because they're in that love vibration and they're running their lives from that place. Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Uh, yeah. What a beautiful thing to just say, you know, I'm going to work with you regardless of what your financial position is, whether you can afford it. I'll make it work for us. That's beautiful. And I do something similar but different in that I'll get the nudge to contact somebody out of the blue and offer them completely free SEO services and internet marketing services. I'll just get the nudge, I'll get the intuitive hit to do it. And it usually, well, always is like spot on. Like the, what I've found personally, and maybe you can confirm this from your standpoint too, is it's pretty easy to get the intuitive feeling about something. What's the hard part is to action it, because it's a little bit scary. It's outside one's comfort zone. It's like, okay, well, pull off on the side of the road and help this stranded motorist, even though you never do that or whatever. And you know, there's of course safety implications too, especially if you're female. But you know, I'm just being hypothetical. Like it's whatever the thing is that you're feeling nudged to do. Uh, it's usually uncomfortable or a little outside of our normal autopilot mode. So if you're usually in the mode of giving $5 to a homeless person and you get the nudge to give that person $100, or in the case of a friend of mine, he gave $109, everything in his wallet, to this waitress that was serving him and his wife and kids at a diner. And she started sobbing and showed the text message exchange from earlier that day that said, honey, this was her mom saying, please, I need $109 for my meds this month. Can you please help me out? And her daughter writing back, I can't. I'm just a waitress. I'm barely making enough money to pay for my own bills. And here comes $109. Yeah.
Wow. It's so good. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. It's magic. Like, it's all magic. It's all just beautiful synchronicity, serendipity, and it's all beautiful. You know, another thing I wanted to share with you, and it relates to what you were saying about being able to give in the way that makes sense for you, is workable for you. It may not be just a big cash donation to a worthy nonprofit. Jeffrey Allen, in one of his Mind Valley courses, he's also based in Sedona there, and you and I spoke about him prior to the recording. So he was explaining how at a point in his life when he wanted to be able to transition to being a full-time energy healer, and he was a software engineer, and it was such a different world, and he didn't know how he would make it. He got the nudge to, or like the guidance, the intuitive download to give $10,000. And okay, so one of his goals was to earn $100,000 a year and to give $10,000 to charity. And his guides told him, well, that's actually two goals, and we can accomplish the $10,000 goal right now today. You just write a check for $10,000. And he's like, whoa, 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 wait a second. That's not what I had in mind. Um, and then he negotiated with his guides and he's like, how about I donate my services, $10,000 worth of my healing services to other healers in the Sedona area at $100 worth a pop. So that's 100 healers. I will donate my healing service to them, and then it'll be a ripple effect because I'll make the healers more healed and effective, and then they can do an even better job of healing others. And he got the thumbs up from his guides on that, and so he made that happen. And the most amazing thing happened to his business. It exploded because in the process of this, he made a website for the Sedona area healers that he treated. He was also guided by his guides to post a little bio and description of their services and photo of each of the healers that he donated a healing session to. So it'd be like a little directory of all the healers in the Sedona area. And it started ranking very highly in Google for everything from Sedona acupuncture to Sedona massage therapy to Sedona this and that. And that website really catapulted his business forward. And then he was able to make, 6 figures a year pretty quickly. So that thing of seeing with assistance from above that actually that's two goals, not just one, and you can accomplish the first goal right away, and then the whole negotiating and figuring out a way to make it workable rather than eating ramen noodles for the next few months until you've got the money to afford to work off that 10 grand that you wrote the check for. That's really amazing. I'm just astounded with how this all works, and it's all so divinely, precisely orchestrated, all of it.
It really is. This past week, we're recording this in June, early June, and it has been a very intense few weeks for many of us in the United States. And as a mom and, watching what's going on. And so the way I'm designed, so going into human design, I have an open splenic center. And one of the things about an open splenic center is that I feel all fear. I feel planetary fear. I feel individual fear. I feel my own. When I was growing up, part of the reason I think I was running so fast towards money is I was looking for something I could hold on to not feel fear and terror constantly. And part of my spiritual journey has been learning how to be with that, why meditation was so critical. Like, day doesn't go by for 3 years that I don't meditate and commune with guidance. But last week I got affected by what was going on, and it was interesting to me because the Sedona Yoga Festival was happening at the same time, and I thought I'm in no shape to go to the festival. The exact opposite, because that's what happens with fear. We don't see the possibilities. We don't see that something's going to break us through, right? But I got myself together and I was like, I'll go for one day and then I'll just cry, something like that. And sure enough, it was the absolute medicine that I needed. And over the course of the weekend, I started to get guidance that was coming in that I could tell had been sheltered from the fear because of the pandemic for the past few years, because I am so susceptible to fear. It was like a layer washing away of fear that I didn't even know had kind of gotten connected to my experience with life. And as it was shedding, I was being given information that a class that I finished 2 weeks ago called Clear Money Mind had more information to be shared. So this class is done. And last night, after sitting with it and realizing that there were messages that are wanting to come through, but I don't actually have access to them. They're meant to be shared in a communal experience. I went back and wrote to everyone, hey, I'm going to let this come through to channel something in the wake of what's going on the planet, next Tuesday. And I hope you join me. But you talk about courageous, because when we tune into, hey, there's additional information coming through, I don't know what it is, I'd like you to be there. You feel a little strange in a business sending those emails out. And sure enough, right? People write to me and they're crying and they're like, oh my gosh, I can feel this, I can see it, I see what's happening, thank you so much for listening, and I can't wait to see what comes through next Tuesday. But it's funny to me, because these are things that I would have thought were crazy 10 years ago, getting an email like, we're not actually done with the class that we started and finished, we actually have some more, and we'll see what wants to come through, and it'll be awesome no matter what.
Yep. Yep. Leap and a net will appear.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to be a great net. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. Awesome. So I would love to talk about a topic that I know is near and dear to your heart, and that is chakras. So if we could maybe go a little bit down that rabbit hole, why are chakras important, and what should our listener or viewer know about chakras that could change their lives?
Chakras came to me, even though I had known about them for many years, and they aren't taught in Buddhism, but they're taught in Hindu teachings, right? Or, teachings going thousands and thousands of years back. But about 6 or 7 years ago, after I started my business, I realized that I was teaching about money and I was teaching about spirituality, and there was something missing. Like, there was something that could help everyone integrate and embody these teachings, but I didn't know what it was. And I can't remember the exact moment, but it was one of those, oh, here it is, So I started seeing the chakras appearing in all of my meditations, and talking to me and urging me to create meditations. And I was teaching meditations before that, but never about chakras. And I remember thinking, well, there's all these other people who know about this. Like, who are you? And every time I'd ask those silly questions, I would be rewarded with more and more information. And what it started to show me was that people in the human form are the reason we do get so stuck in scarcity is because of all the baggage, right? It's all the same stuff everyone's teaching, but the baggage could actually be classified and better understood and released through the understanding of the chakras, particularly in this relationship we have with money. That each of the chakras is an energy center, right? Running from the lower base of the spine all the way to just above the crown. But each of them retaining all of this information of those wounds of the past, and also these areas of huge potentiality that if they're blocked, or they're not spinning, or the energy isn't fluid, and connecting from one to the next, we end up not operating at our optimized fullest potential. It's really that simple. And what's so fun about it is, just by giving attention to the chakras, knowing a little bit, we have the ability to dive in and start to ask them to show us what's ready to be released and what's ready to shine in our lives. And it covers the maturation process of a human being from the womb all the way to about 25, 26 years of age, right? So it's covering that all the way to the crown. And where we see ourselves getting stuck in different areas, maybe the heart chakra or the throat chakra, particularly people who have had a lot of success with money, they've got the lower chakras figured out one way or another, but they're not integrated with the upper chakras. And so the energy might get stuck at the heart. And I notice a lot of people end up having, I was saying, like, relationship struggles. which can block the energy from flowing up into the upper chakras. And there's so much there, but for me, I meditate on them every morning, kind of like a tune up. It allows me to tune into what are the areas where there's great potential or there's also weakness. And just by our natural gift of saying, oh, I love you, I see you, I honor you, the other messages come in, whether it be in our practical lives, in our business, with our money, whatever teaching we need immediately appears, and we just move through life, like Jesus said, wear life like a light garment. That's what it's allowing you to do, is to be present without all of the baggage dragging you back or projecting you into the future, into areas that you don't know what will even happen, no matter how much you guess.
Yeah, you have to let a lot of stuff go in order to have those energy centers all connect up and flow integrally between. You need to let go of the grief, the shame, the anger, the hatred, the guilt, all of it, fear, and attachment. Right. So the crown chakra in Hebrew, it's called the Keter, Keter. It's the crown, and that's your connection to the divine and to the heavens. And if you are still attached to whatever it is, possessions or loved ones or whatever, you block that connection, that being nobody, and no time and no place, like Dr. Joe Dispenza describes.
Mm-hmm. Then everything that you are is one with God. Like, not that you are God, but that you are made from God, and that this experience of not being trapped in fear, you're able to easily question those moments when fear kind of sucks you in. And then sometimes it takes, like I said, my work has always been being just really open and honest about what it's like to be on the journey without an expectation of there being perfection or having it all figured out, or like that we could just be ourselves, and that's plenty. Yeah. And part of the way that I like to do that is to be really, really open about the vulnerable and the difficult and the challenges that come up as a human being.
Yeah. There's a scene in a Netflix show. I don't know what show it is, but Tina Zion, who is a guest on this podcast, she's also mentoring me on medical intuition. She that particular scene, there was a phrase that just popped for her, and the protagonist was yelling to, I don't know, some demon or something, "I have no more fear to feed you." Right? So we need to do that. We need to say, "I have no more fear to feed you." That we're like batteries in the Matrix, the Duracell battery. That's like, but we're not feeding some super intelligent AI. We're feeding the dark forces with our fear, and they eat it up. That's how they. That's their. We are their power source. So stop feeding them. Stop watching the Crisis News Network and get outside and put your bare feet on the ground and connect with Mother Earth and with God and all that is.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, how do you see the idea of I and me playing into all of this?
I and me. Well, I know that separation is an illusion, that we are all one. I also know that it's part of this illusion of life, of the experience of learning and growing, that we perceive separation and we perceive ourselves as a separate identity. And that serves us for a time to have something to push against, something to contrast. So I'm not resisting the I and the me, but I also recognize at a higher level there is a view of this experience where I and me don't exist, where there is no boundary between where uh, I end and someone else or the creator begins. So I don't really know how else to answer that question. I don't know. Does that answer your question or not? I don't know.
Well, it's something that's fun for, I think, all seekers to pause and question, what is the identification? I give, I love, I do, and, and, it can get into, again, back to the humility that I think it requires. Like, I'll give you a specific. When I first started in the Buddhist path, um, one of the biggest teachings for me was you are not in control of what happens to you or to others. Like, that was a big teaching that Buddha taught in many different ways that I had a really hard time with, coming from the world that, type A, I can make it happen, make it so, blah, blah, blah. So that was like a teaching I had to work on for years. But what also happened that maybe wasn't as helpful for me on the Buddhist path was that after 8, 9, 10 years of meditation and of dissolving this idea of I and me, there was no me left. There was nothing there. I was basically exiting life, and that wasn't helpful to my family. I was also my mom had died from ovarian cancer, and there was a reason to kind of escape from life. So I was like, I'll just meditate more and dissolve this sense of I. But along the way, I started to realize that I was giving up all desire for anything in this life. Um, I was just retreating from all of life in disillusion. And I think partly as a woman
Mm.
that had been raised in a very patriarchal, like by a patriarchal father, it was easy for me to disappear. It was easy for me not to have a voice. It was easy for me to do those things after a while. Once I got the hang of it, I was like, oh. And in the end, about 11 years into Buddhism, I had to walk away from it because I didn't know who I was anymore. I had not found myself. That idea of finding yourself before you lose yourself, I couldn't find myself. Part of my journey of starting my company and being in business allowed me to find myself. And now I'm in a new process of the dissolution of self that I can watch dissolving before my eyes. But as I understand it, one of my teachers, Bernadette Roberts, who's no longer alive, but I studied with her for several years, and after I left Buddhism, she had gone to the other side of no self, where there isn't even a relationship with God, because without self, there is no God in the way that we see God, because all of it is predicated on the understanding of a self being present and real. And and so when I ask that question, there's so many layers to it, but it's also perhaps helpful for people to hear our stories in the journey that we're going through as we explore these things, and potentially
Yeah, we're all a work in progress. I mean, we haven't all figured it all out, and just reporting from
yeah.
up high. It's very sunny up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that that occurs to me, I remember learning this from one of my Kabbalah teachers, is that when you elevate to a higher, what's called in Kabbalah and in Hebrew, it's sferot, the higher sferot, the higher realms or dimensions, there is no desire anymore because you realize it's already there. It's all been fulfilled. So you have all the fulfillment. Everything you've ever wished for is there because that's what's real. And then you lose connection with the physical reality of paying your bills and showing up for work on time and calling your creditors back and stuff like that. So that's dangerous for living a physical existence. So it's constantly having to bounce back and forth between the physical plane of existence, what's called in Kabbalah the Malchut, what's called the Malchut, and the higher Sferot, like Binah and so forth, where you're getting much more of the fulfillment and you don't need the desire. But then back on the Malchut, on the physical realm, it's all desire and you don't have the fulfillment. Where's that fancy new car? Where's the new house? Where's, like, reminds me of that Talking Heads song, right? So that is the secret, I think. One of the secrets is to know that you got to bounce back and forth. Like, you're getting too much in the clouds. Oh my goodness. Everything is, like rainbows and butterflies. It's like, I'm a little disconnected from the physical realm. I better get back down there. And then a little too in the weeds of the physicality and getting sucked in too much to social media and all that sort of stuff. Like, oh, I got to reconnect, right? Really, one of the best things I got in advice from different mentors, this was from Corinne Grillo, also a past guest on the show. She said, draw down the energy of the higher Sferot into the physical realm, right? So draw down that energy. Don't go floating in the clouds, but pull that energy down into this physical existence. And that from that place, you can manifest your dreams and you can be of great service to
I think
everybody
that's
around you.
so beautiful. And I can feel that happening. If that wasn't possible, I don't think I would still be doing what I do. Our financial needs are all met, and
Yeah.
sometimes I think, oh, are there other things I could be doing than this? And again, the voices, no, you're in the right place. It's good. The resources come to
Yeah.
because of that pulling down. That's a gift and something that we can continue to learn more and more how to do that.
To learn and to share with everyone around us, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. So as you open your 7 chakras and connect to the heavens and draw down that energy and so forth, you're a model for your children. You can also narrate through this process so they know what the heck you're doing. And in fact, I just came across this funny thing. There was a little snippet of a TV show, a kids show. I think it was The Last Airbender cartoon, aired on Nickelodeon. And it was all about how to open the 7 chakras. It was really, really cool. And I'll include a link to that clip in the show notes for that episode, for this episode. I just think it's amazing what's happening. Like, it's not just the woo-woo ones who are getting plugged in. It's everybody. It's a mass awakening, and we gotta get the word out. Just again, to circle back to something we talked about earlier in the conversation. Don't be afraid to let your woo-woo flag fly.
100%.
Yeah. Now I know we're out of time, so what would be the best place for our listener or viewer to go to work with you, to learn from you, to
Mm,
follow you
thank
on
you.
social media, all that?
So, two things. If you go to wealthclinic.com/vision, you'll get a chakra meditation that I guide you through, the same one I do every morning now. So, that's fun. You'll also get the first chapter of my book, The Mindful Millionaire, and you can see if that's something that would speak to you. And I'm bringing money and chakras together and teaching people about their relationship with money.
Awesome. What a great resource. Thank you for that gift. And what social platform are you
We
most
have a
active on?
Facebook group, so I'm still there. I'm also on Instagram at Leisa, Leisa, Peterson, Peterson.
Awesome. Leisa, thank you so much. This was a beautiful, inspiring conversation, and I'm sure it's going to have a wonderful ripple effect. So
Thank
thank
you
you
for hosting.
for joining us today. All right. So, listener, please spread some light and make a difference in the world. We'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.